The iron collar burned against Thalia's throat as the slaver shoved her forward onto the platform. Her bare feet scraped against splintered wood, and she kept her eyes fixed downward, away from the leering faces of the crowd gathered in Blackthorn Market. 15 years she'd hidden in the Valewood forest, and one moment of carelessness, venturing too close to a hunting party, had ended it all. "Fresh catch from the borderlands," the slaver announced, his meaty hand gripping her shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Young, strong, perfect for labor or other purposes." Thalia's stomach churned. She was 29 years old, though malnourishment made her appear younger. Her dark hair hung in matted tangles past her waist, and her clothes were little more than stitched together animal hides. To these city dwellers she must look like exactly what the slaver claimed, a wild thing from beyond civilization. But they didn't know what she really was. They couldn't know. "Does she speak?" called a merchant from the crowd. "She's feral," the slaver replied with a cruel grin. "Found her living in a cave like an animal, but she'll learn obedience quick enough." Thalia's hands clenched into fists. She could speak perfectly well. In fact, she'd once been training as a scholar in the Royal Academy before everything had been taken from her. Before the purge killed her father and destroyed her people. Before she'd fled into the forest at 14 to survive. 10 silver, a gruff voice called out. 12, another countered. Her heart hammered. The collar suppressed her magic. She could feel it like a dam holding back a flood. But even without that, she had no strength left to fight. 3 days without food, beaten whenever she'd tried to escape, she was utterly trapped. 15 silver, and that's generous for a half-starved forest rat, the first bidder said. "What's her crime?" A new voice cut through the auction, female, clear, carrying authority. Thalia's eyes flickered up. A woman stood at the edge of the gathering, wearing a healer's green cloak, auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid. Beside her stood a girl of perhaps 16, with the same sharp, intelligent eyes. "Crime?" The slaver laughed. "No crime, my lady. She's unclaimed property, found living wild in the Valewood." "The Valewood is protected territory," the woman said, stepping forward. "Taking anyone from there without royal permission is theft from the crown." The slaver's face darkened. "Are you a magistrate, woman?" "I'm Keeper Iris of the Healers Guild," she replied calmly. "And I know the law. Everyone taken from protected lands must be examined for magical ability before being sold." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Thalia felt ice flood her veins. Magical examination would reveal her gift. They'd discover she was one of the marked ones, the seers who'd been hunted to extinction 15 years ago. "She's no mage," the slaver spat. "Look at her." "Then you won't mind me examining her," Iris said, climbing the steps. She moved directly to Thalia, gray eyes sharp and assessing. Up close, Thalia could see a faint shimmer in her aura. This woman had power too. Iris's gaze dropped to the iron collar and her expression hardened. "Who authorized a suppression collar?" "She was violent when we caught her," the slaver lied. "Suppression collars are only legal for convicted criminals," Iris said coldly. Her hand moved to the collar's lock, and Thalia's eyes widened in panic. "Don't," Thalia whispered. The first word she'd spoken in 3 days. "Please don't." Iris's eyes met hers, and understanding flashed across her face. This woman knew what would happen when that collar came off. "How much?" Iris asked quietly. "What?" "How much for her?" "You wanted 15 silver. I'll give you 20. The crowd erupted in confused muttering. The slaver's eyes narrowed with suspicion and greed. 30 silver, Iris continued, reaching into her purse. "Final offer. Take it, or I'll summon the magistrate to investigate your licensing." The slaver snatched the coins. "She's your problem now, healer." He unlocked the collar with unnecessary roughness. The 3 days of suppression had been uncomfortable, a constant dull ache. But the moment it fell away, Thalia gasped as her magic flooded back in a tidal wave of power that had been building for days. She swayed, and Iris's arm came around her waist. "Easy," the healer murmured. "I've got you." "Alara, help me." Together they helped Thalia down from the platform. The crowd parted, whispers following in their wake. They'd barely made it to the market's edge when a man stepped into their path. He wore a magistrate's silver badge and had the kind of face that smiled while delivering bad news. "Keeper Iris," he said with false pleasantness. "Magistrate Corwin. I couldn't help but notice your unusual purchase." "Just doing my duty, Magistrate," Iris replied. "The law requires magical examination for anyone taken from protected lands." "Indeed?" Corwin walked alongside them, studying Thalia. "And will you be reporting the results?" "If there's anything to report," Iris said carefully. "You spent 30 silver on a feral girl who might have no magic at all?" Corwin's tone suggested he knew otherwise. How charitable. Or perhaps suspicious. "What exactly are you suggesting, Magistrate?" "Only that certain individuals hide fugitives under the guise of charity," Corwin said. "Individuals who sympathize with extinct causes, the marked ones, for instance." The name hit Thalia like a physical blow. She stumbled, and only Iris's grip kept her upright. "The marked ones died 15 years ago," Iris said flatly. "Everyone knows the official story," Corwin corrected. "But rumors persist. Strange magic in the forests. And now you've bought a wild woman found in the Valewood, the same forest where the last of the marked supposedly fled." They'd reached a small cottage at the town's outskirts. Iris turned to face Corwin fully. "The girl is malnourished, dehydrated, and possibly ill," Iris said coldly. "If you're quite finished, I'd like to tend to my patient." Corwin smiled that terrible smile. "Of course, Keeper. Tend to your patient, examine her magic, and do remember, harboring a fugitive carries the death penalty." He tipped his hat mockingly. "I'll be very interested in your official report." He walked away, and Iris quickly ushered Thalia and Alara inside, slamming the door and throwing the bolt. "Mama, he knows," Alara whispered. "He suspects," Iris corrected, turning to Thalia. "Which means we don't have much time." "Sit." Thalia collapsed onto a wooden bench, her whole body trembling. Now that the collar was gone, her magic sang through her veins like wildfire, begging to be released after years of suppression. "Why did you help me?" Thalia asked. "You don't know what I am?" Iris knelt before her, taking Thalia's hands. Her magic, gentle, warm, probed carefully. Iris's eyes widened. "Sweet mercy," she breathed. "You're not just marked. You're a seer." She glanced at Alara. "Alara, get water and bread, and draw the curtains. All of them." When the girl hurried away, Iris leaned closer. "You're a true seer," she said. "The king's hunters killed every seer they could find during the purge because you can see through lies, through illusions, through royal propaganda." "The old king started the purge," Thalia said bitterly. "And you want me to believe the current king is different?" "King Kale, he's not like his grandfather," Iris insisted. "There are rumors he's been searching for survivors. That he wants to make amends." Thalia laughed, sharp and broken. "Make amends? For genocide? I know it sounds impossible, but—" Iris stopped as Thalia suddenly gasped, her eyes rolling back. The vision hit without warning. Thalia's sight tore open, and she was no longer in the cottage but standing in a vast forest under a full moon. She could smell pine and earth and something wild, wolf musk, stronger and more primal than any natural scent. A figure moved through the trees. Male, massive. His eyes glowed amber in the darkness, and power radiated from him like heat from a forge. He was searching for something, his head tilted as if listening to a sound only he could hear. Then his gaze found hers, impossibly, across the distance and time of the vision, and she felt recognition lance through her soul. His lips moved, forming a single word she couldn't hear, but somehow understood. Mine. Thalia crashed back into her body with a scream, and Iris caught her before she could fall. "What did you see?" the healer demanded. But Thalia couldn't answer, because she'd seen the impossible. She'd seen the Alpha King, Kale Stormfang himself, ruler of all Shifter clans and the most powerful werewolf in the realm. The same king whose grandfather had ordered the execution of every seer. And somehow, impossibly, he'd been looking for her. Thalia woke to sunlight and the smell of herbal tea. For a moment, panic seized her. 15 years of sleeping in caves had taught her that waking anywhere civilized meant danger. Then memory returned. The auction, Iris, the cottage, the vision. She sat up carefully. Someone had bathed her, dressed her in a simple linen shift, and bandaged her wounds. Her magic hummed beneath her skin, no longer suppressed but chaotic from years of forced restraint. "You're awake," Alara said from the doorway, carrying a tray. "Mama said you'd sleep until noon. It's barely dawn." "I'm not used to sleeping through the night," Thalia admitted, accepting the tea. "Where is Iris?" "Guild meeting. She left before sunrise." Alara settled on the bed's edge. "You screamed in your sleep, about forests and eyes." Thalia's hands tightened on the cup. "Just a nightmare." "Mama says seers don't have nightmares," Alara countered. "They have visions." "She's been reading everything she can about your kind since last night." Despite everything, Thalia felt a smile tug at her lips. "Your mother sounds like she was a scholar." "She was. At the Royal Academy, same as you." Alara's eyes gleamed with triumph at Thalia's shocked expression. "She recognized your accent. Eastern provinces, educated in the capital, probably noble-born." "If she knows all that, why did she save me?" "Because 15 years ago, a marked woman named Sarah hid my mother and me when the hunters came to the academy," Alara said quietly. "Sarah died buying us time to escape. Mama owes a debt she can never fully repay." The name hit Thalia like a fist. "Sarah? Sarah Brightwater?" Alara nodded. "She was my teacher," Thalia whispered, tears burning. "She taught me to control my sight." "She made sure others escaped," Alara finished gently. They sat in shared grief. Then footsteps on the path outside made them both tense. "That's not Mama's walk," Alara said, moving to the window. She peeked through the curtains and went pale. "It's Magistrate Corwin, and he has guards with suppression collars." Thalia's magic surged. "How many?" "4. "The collar," Thalia said urgently. "The one from yesterday. Do you still have it?" Alara nodded, confused. "Get it. Quickly." The girl ran, returning moments before Corwin's knock thundered against the door. Thalia snatched the iron collar and, with a deep breath, locked it around her own throat. This time, the agony was immediate and intense, far worse than the dull ache of wearing it while already suppressed. Her fully awakened magic screamed in protest as the iron forced it back down, and she channeled that genuine pain into her voice. "Please," she wailed, loud enough for Corwin to hear. "Please don't send me back to the forest." "I'll be good, I promise." Alara caught on instantly. "Father Corwin, please." "She's terrified." Thalia let herself slide off the bed, fell to her knees, and began to sob. Great heaving sobs. The collar's pain made the tears real, and fear made her hands shake. The door burst open. Corwin stood on the threshold with 4 guards, his expression anticipating triumph. That expression faltered when he saw Thalia cowering on the floor, the suppression collar clearly visible, looking every inch the broken, helpless victim. "Well," he said slowly, "this is unexpected." "Magistrate Corwin," Ilara said, positioning herself protectively. "My mother isn't here. If you have official business." "My business is with her," Corwin said, gesturing at Thalia. "Already done," Iris's voice cut in from behind the guards. She pushed through, expression thunderous. "I submitted my report to the guildmaster an hour ago. The girl has minor healing talent, nothing more." She moved to Thalia's side, helping her up. "And I put the suppression collar on her because she panicked and nearly set my curtains on fire. She has no control. She'll need months of training." Corwin's face cycled through anger, suspicion, and finally grudging acceptance. The collar, the guild report, and her display of helplessness painted exactly the picture he'd claimed yesterday. A feral, magically weak girl who posed no threat. "I want to see that report," he demanded. "Request it through official channels," Iris replied coolly. "Unless you have a warrant, I suggest you leave." Corwin stared at Thalia, and she forced herself to meet his gaze with fearful, uncomprehending eyes. Finally, he nodded curtly. "This isn't over, Keeper Iris. I'll be watching." "You do that, Magistrate." The guards filed out. Iris slammed the door, waiting until footsteps faded before rounding on Thalia. "That was either brilliant or suicidal," she said, reaching for the collar's lock. "Probably both." "Wait," Thalia said, catching her hand. "Leave it on." "What? Why?" "Because he's watching," Thalia explained. "If I suddenly have full magic, he'll know we lied. But if I'm wearing this, still suppressed and helpless, I'm not a threat." Iris studied her face, then nodded slowly. "You're right. But we'll loosen it at night, in private. Wearing suppression collars for extended periods causes permanent damage." "Thank you," Thalia whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Iris said grimly. "I falsified an official guild report. If anyone discovers what you really are, we'll all be executed." The weight settled over them. Thalia had spent 15 years alone specifically to avoid putting anyone else in danger. Now she'd dragged this kind woman and her daughter into conspiracy. "I'll leave," Thalia said. "Tonight. I'll go back to the Valewood." "No," Ilara interrupted fiercely. "You're staying. Besides, you haven't told us about the vision yet. The one that made you scream." Thalia's breath caught. "I don't know what you saw something," Iris said gently. "Something that terrified you. What was it?" Thalia looked between them. This brave healer and her fierce daughter. They deserve the truth. "I saw the Alpha King," she said quietly. "Kale Stormfang. He was searching the forest and he was looking for me. Specifically for me." The color drained from Iris's face. The Alpha King. The same king whose grandfather ordered the execution of every seer, Thalia finished. "Yes." "But that's impossible," Ilara protested. "How could he know about you?" "I don't know," Thalia admitted, "but seer visions don't lie." "He's coming." Iris moved to the window. "How long do we have?" "The vision didn't give me a timeline," Thalia said. "Could be days. Could be weeks." "Then we need a plan," Iris said firmly. "We need allies, resources, and we need to figure out why he's looking for you." "Does it matter why?" Thalia asked bitterly. "Seers are dangerous to the crown." "Maybe," Iris conceded, "or maybe there's something else." She took Thalia's hands. "But whatever his reasons, I promise you this, you won't face him alone." Thalia felt tears burn her eyes. For 15 years she'd survived alone, but looking at Iris's determined face and Ilara's fierce loyalty, She felt something she hadn't allowed herself in over a decade. Hope. Thank you, she whispered. Thank me when we're all still alive, Iris said with a wry smile. Then her expression turned serious. But Thalia, you need to know something. King Kale left the capital 3 days ago. He's traveling north with a small hunting party. Toward Blackthorn. Toward us. Thalia's blood turned to ice. 3 days ago. The same day she'd been captured. That's not a coincidence, Alara breathed. No, Thalia agreed. It's not. Because somehow, impossibly, the Alpha King had known. He'd known she would leave the forest. He'd known she would be captured. He'd known exactly where to find her. And that meant he was connected to her in a way that transcended normal magic. Connected in a way that could only mean one thing. Oh gods, Thalia whispered. He's my... But she couldn't finish. Couldn't say the word. Because if she was right, the Alpha King, grandson of the man who'd ordered the deaths of her entire people, was her fated mate. And she had no idea whether he'd come to claim her or kill her. That night, Iris removed the suppression collar, and the rush of returning magic nearly brought Thalia to her knees. She gasped, clutching the bedpost as power flooded through her. Easy, Iris murmured. Your magic has been caged too long. It's not the magic, Thalia panted, her eyes glowing silver. It's him. I can feel him now. He's closer. How close? 2 days' ride, maybe less. Thalia's hands shook as she pressed them to her temples. He's moving faster than normal travelers. He knows which direction to go. Iris's expression darkened. Because he's tracking you. If you're truly bound to him, he can track you the way wolves track their mates. Thalia nodded miserably. The bond works both ways. The more my magic returns, the clearer the connection becomes. I can feel his presence like a compass pointing north, and he can feel mine pointing back. Can you tell what he wants? No. The bond isn't that strong yet. Or maybe he's blocking me. She met Iris's eyes. We need to suppress the bond somehow. If there was a way, the seers would have discovered it during the purge, Iris said quietly. Fated bonds can't be broken. They can only be completed or one of the bonded dies. Wonderful. So our options are, let him find me or kill one of us. There might be a third option, Alara said from the doorway, holding an ancient book. I found this in Mama's restricted collection. It's a journal from the last Seer Council, written just before the purge. Iris took the book with trembling hands. How did you... I locked that chest with blood magic. I'm your daughter, Alara said with a slight smile. Your blood is my blood. Iris flipped through pages, scanning rapidly. It's a record of the council's final meeting. They knew the purge was coming. She paused. Listen. The old king fears us because we see the truth. He has made a devil's bargain with shadow mages, trading his subjects' life force for immortality. The seers who might expose this must die, but in his fear, he has overlooked one crucial detail. Fate protects its chosen bonds. The last seer will be bound to the last true alpha, and through that bond, the corruption will be cleansed or consumed. Silence fell. Thalia felt her magic pulse in recognition. The last seer, she whispered. That's me. And Kale is the last true alpha, Iris said slowly. His grandfather killed or corrupted all other bloodlines. The Stormfang line is the only pure werewolf dynasty remaining. So the prophecy is about us, Thalia said. About me and him. But what does it mean? There's more, Iris said, flipping pages. Beware the shadow mages. They will seek to prevent the bond's completion, for a true alpha bound to a true seer cannot be corrupted. Together, they would restore balance. Separately, they are vulnerable. Shadow mages, Thalia repeated. The grandfather made a bargain with them. What if he's not really dead? A sound outside cut her off. Not normal, but something that made her sight scream warnings. Iris felt it too, her head snapping toward the window. Something's wrong, the healer said, moving to extinguish the lamp. Alara, get behind. The window exploded inward in a shower of glass and dark magic. Thalia threw up a shield on instinct, silver light forming a barrier that caught the debris. But through the broken window came shadows, living shadows that moved with predatory intelligence. Shadow mages, Iris breathed, pushing Alara behind her. They found us. They found her, a voice said from the darkness. A figure materialized, tall, thin, wearing robes of night. The last little seer. How fortunate you've stayed in one place. Thalia's magic surged, but the shadow mage laughed. I wouldn't do that, child. Your magic is bright, and brightness is easy to trace. The moment you use your sight against us, every shadow mage within 100 miles will know where you are. He tilted his head. Of course, we'll kill your little friends either way. Unless you come quietly. Don't listen to him, Iris said fiercely, her magic beginning to glow. Thalia, run. How touching, the shadow mage said, but futile. He gestured and shadows lunged. Thalia reacted without thinking. Her sight exploded outward, not as a weapon, but as pure vision, showing the shadow mage exactly what she saw in his future. His scream was satisfying as he stumbled backward, clutching his head. Run! Thalia shouted, grabbing Alara's hand and dragging her toward the door. Iris followed, throwing barrier spells behind them. They burst into the main room just as the front door splintered. More shadow mages poured in, and Thalia realized they were surrounded. There's no way out, she said. They've trapped us. Then we fight, Alara said, her young face determined. To Thalia's shock, the girl's hands began to glow with healing magic. Together. Thalia felt tears sting her eyes. They were going to die for her. This brave woman and her fierce daughter were going to die because Thalia had been too weak to stay away. She wouldn't let that happen. Before Iris could stop her, Thalia looked directly at the bond, the invisible thread connecting her to the Alpha King, and she pulled. The sensation was like grabbing lightning. The bond flared to life, burning bright enough that shadow mages hissed and recoiled. And across that bond, across the miles, she sent a single desperate message. Help. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Recognition, fury, possessive rage that someone dared threaten what was his. And underneath, a promise wrapped in alpha power. I'm coming. Hold on. But they didn't have time to wait. The shadow mages recovered quickly and their leader stepped forward. Clever girl, he hissed, calling your mate, but he's still 2 days away and you'll be dead in minutes. Thalia struck with her sight, not with magic, but with vision, forcing him to see what she saw, the truth of his master's death, the corruption eating his soul, the futility of his existence. He screamed, and his shadows dissipated. But there were still 3 more mages, and Thalia's magic was nearly exhausted. She'd used too much, pushed too hard. You can't defeat us all, another shadow mage said, darkness gathering between his palms. Iris threw herself in front of Thalia and Alara, her healing magic forming a shield that wouldn't be strong enough. Thalia closed her eyes, reaching for her sight one last time, preparing to burn herself out if it meant saving them. But before either side could strike, a sound split the night. A howl that made every window rattle and every shadow mage freeze in terror. It was answered by another howl, and another, until the air vibrated with the sound of a wolf pack. Impossible, the lead shadow mage whispered. He can't be here yet. The door didn't just open. It exploded. torn from its frame by something massive and silver-furred. A dire wolf stood in the doorway, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with eyes that glowed amber and teeth that could tear through steel. Behind it, more wolves poured in, surrounding the shadow mages. The dire wolf's gaze found Thalia across the chaos, and she felt the bond between them snap into sharp clarity. In that moment, she knew his name, his fears, his hopes. She knew he'd been searching for her for 3 years. She knew he'd pushed his wolf form beyond normal limits, running at alpha speed that few could match, when he felt her call pierce his soul. She knew he would slaughter anyone who tried to take her. And he knew all the same things about her. The recognition was mutual, absolute, and terrifying. The shadow mages scattered, but the wolves were faster. Thalia heard screams, saw flashes of magic and fur, but her eyes never left the dire wolf in the doorway. He padded forward, his massive form somehow navigating the small cottage without destroying anything. When he reached Thalia, he shifted, bones cracking and reforming until a man knelt before her. He was younger than she'd expected. Perhaps 27, she realized, 2 years her junior, though he seemed far older in bearing. Silver-black hair fell across his brow, and those same amber eyes looked straight through her. Scars crossed his bare chest, warrior's marks, but his face was surprisingly gentle as he stared up at her. "Thalia," he said, and his voice was exactly as she'd heard it in her vision, deep, rough, saying her name like a prayer. "I've been looking for you." "I know," she whispered, because the bond told her everything. "You've been looking for 3 years." "Since the day I felt you wake," he corrected. "Your magic had been dormant so long I thought you were dead. Then 3 years ago, something changed. Your magic stirred, and I felt you for the first time." His hand reached toward her face but stopped short. "I've been following that feeling ever since." "Why?" Thalia asked. "Your grandfather killed my people. Why would you want to find the last seer?" Pain flashed across his face. "To apologize, to make amends, to fix what my family broke. And because from the moment I felt you, I knew. You're my mate, Thalia. My fated one. And I would rather die than let shadow mages take you." Behind them, the last shadow mage fell. Silence descended, broken only by heavy breathing and Thalia's pounding heart. "You came," she said stupidly. "You called," Kale replied simply. "I will always come when you call." And there, in the ruins of Iris's cottage, surrounded by wolves and corpses, Thalia felt the last of her defenses crumble. For 15 years, she'd survived alone. But standing before her was a man who'd spent 3 years searching, who'd traveled day and night to reach her, who'd brought his entire pack to save her. And she had no idea what to do about that. "We need to leave," an older wolf said, shifting to human form. He had gray threading through dark hair and a scar across his jaw. "More shadow mages will come." "Garrett's right," Kale said, his gaze never leaving Thalia. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "Safe?" Thalia laughed, edging toward hysteria. "I've been hiding for 15 years. They found me anyway. Where is safe?" "The capital," Kyle said firmly. "The palace. Under my protection." "The palace where your grandfather ordered the purge," Thalia said, taking a step back. "You want me to go there?" "The palace has wards that even shadow mages can't penetrate," Kale explained. "It's the most defensible location in the kingdom." "It's also a cage," Thalia shot back. Something flickered in Kale's amber gaze. Hurt, maybe, or understanding. "I'm not my grandfather, Thalia." "I know you have no reason to trust me, but—" "Your Majesty," Iris interrupted, stepping forward with Alara behind her. She bowed shallowly. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere other than my destroyed cottage, which will shortly have every neighbor demanding explanations. Kale's attention shifted to Iris. You're the one who bought her at auction, who falsified the guild report. Iris's chin lifted. I saved her from slavery. If that's a crime in your kingdom, then your kingdom is as corrupt as your grandfather made it. The wolves growled, but Kale held up a hand. No, he said quietly. She's right. He turned back to Iris and bowed, a deep, formal bow. You protected my mate when I couldn't. You risked everything to keep her safe. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Iris blinked, clearly not expecting that. You're welcome, Your Majesty. Kale, he corrected. And your daughter? She has healing magic? Yes, Iris said warily. Come with us. Both of you. I can offer you positions at the palace. You as chief healer, your daughter as apprentice. You'll be safe, well paid. He glanced at Thalia. And perhaps your presence will help convince Thalia I'm not planning to imprison her. I want your word, Iris said. Your royal word, bound by magic, that we're free to leave if we choose. You have it, Kale said immediately. He pricked his finger on one of his claws, letting blood well up. By my blood and crown, I swear you and your daughter are free. You may leave the palace whenever you wish, and no harm will come to you by my order or inaction. This I swear. The blood droplet rose into the air, glowing golden, then sank into Iris's chest. She gasped as the oath took hold, a binding that would kill Kale if he broke it. You actually did it, she breathed. I meant what I said, Kyle replied simply. Then he turned back to Thalia. You're not a prisoner. You're my mate, my partner, my equal. I would never force you to. Stop, Thalia said, pressing her hands to her temples. The bond was growing stronger, flooding her with emotions that weren't her own. His relief, his fear, his desperate hope. Just stop. Let me think. But thinking was nearly impossible with the bond singing between them and her sight, showing fragments of possible futures. In one, she saw herself in the palace, safe, but always looking over her shoulder. In another, she saw herself running until shadow mages caught her. In a third, she gasped. The shadow mages. They said their master wants proof of my death. But you said your grandfather is dead. He is, Kale confirmed. I watched him die 3 years ago. Then who's giving the orders? Thalia demanded. Kale's expression darkened. I was hoping your sight could tell me. It doesn't work like that, Thalia said. I can't just look into shadows and see who's behind them. She paused. Unless I use my sight on something connected to the shadows. She looked at the fallen shadow mage. His robes. They're infused with shadow magic. If I read them, I might trace back to their source. Absolutely not, Kale said immediately. Shadow magic is corrupting. I'm a seer, Thalia said sharply. My magic is designed to see truth through darkness. She's right, Garrett said reluctantly. Seers were shadow mages' natural enemies. That's why the grandfather wanted them dead. They could expose his corruption. Kyle looked torn. Finally, he nodded. I'm staying with you. If anything goes wrong, I'll pull you out. Thalia knelt beside the dead shadow mage and touched his robes. The wrongness of the magic made her skin crawl. Taking a deep breath, she opened her sight. The vision pulled her backward through time and shadow. She saw the mage killing, corrupting, serving. Always serving a dark figure whose face remained hidden behind layers of shadow magic. But then the vision went further back, to when he'd been an ordinary man with a family, and she saw the moment he'd made his bargain. The figure appeared, offering power in exchange for service. The man, desperate to save his dying wife, agreed. But the moment he accepted shadow magic, his fate was sealed. His wife died anyway, and he was bound to serve. Thalia gasped, pulling out. The master isn't the grandfather. It's someone else. Someone who was working with the grandfather but survived his death. Who? Kyle demanded. I couldn't see their face. The shadows obscured it even in my vision, but I felt recognition. This is someone who knows the royal family intimately. Someone close to power. A howl split the night. Not from Kale's pack, but from the forest beyond. It was answered by dozens more. That's not your pack, Thalia said. No, Kale agreed grimly. That's a shadow pack. Corrupted wolves. And they're surrounding us. How many? Garrett asked, already shifting. Kale's eyes glowed as he extended his senses. 20. Maybe more. We can't fight that many, Iris said, pulling Alara close. Then we don't fight, Kyle said. He turned to Thalia. We run. I need you to trust me, just for the next few minutes. Can you do that? She looked into his amber eyes and felt the bond pulse with sincerity. How do we run from wolves? She asked. Kyle smiled, wild and beautiful. On 4 legs. Before Thalia could ask what he meant, he was pulling her close, one hand cupping the back of her neck. This will feel strange, he warned, but I promise it won't hurt. Then he kissed her. The world exploded into sensation. The bond flared to life, burning away the last of her resistance. Power flooded through her. His power, wild and primal. And with it came knowledge. She gasped against his lips as she suddenly understood. He was offering her his form, his shape, his nature. He was offering to make her a wolf. Yes, she breathed. Yes, do it. The transformation wasn't gentle. Thalia felt her bones crack and reform, felt fur erupt from her skin, felt her senses sharpen. She collapsed to all 4s, but instead of agony, there was only power. She was a wolf, silver-white like Kale, but smaller, more agile. And within her, she felt his pride, his joy, his absolute certainty that she was magnificent. Beside her, Kale shifted back to wolf form, pressing his larger body against hers in comfort and claim. The rest of his pack followed until the cottage was full of wolves. All except Iris and Alara, who stared at Thalia in shock. Garrett padded forward and offered his back to them. I can carry you. Both of you. Hold on tight. Iris lifted Alara onto Garrett's broad back, then climbed behind her. Kale's howl split the air, a command and warning. The pack moved as one, bursting from the cottage into the night. Thalia ran on instinct, her new senses guiding her through darkness. Behind them, the shadow pack gave chase. But they were fast. The world blurred past, and she felt free in a way she'd never experienced. Kale's voice echoed through the pack bond. 3 miles to the river. Cross it, and they can't follow. Running water breaks shadow magic. Thalia pushed herself harder, keeping pace with Kale's massive form. She could feel the shadow pack gaining, could smell their corruption. But she could also feel Kale's confidence. The river appeared ahead, wide and fast-flowing, gleaming in moonlight. Without hesitation, Kale leaped, his powerful legs carrying him across. His pack followed, each wolf soaring over the water. Thalia gathered herself, feeling her muscles coil and release. She was airborne, flying over the river, and for one perfect moment she wasn't running from anything. She was just flying. She landed on the far bank and spun around to watch Garrett clear the water with Iris and Alara clinging to his back. The moment they were safe, Kale's howl echoed again, this time in triumph. On the far bank, the shadow pack skidded to a stop, unable to cross. Their alpha, larger and darker than the rest, fixed Thalia with eyes that glowed sickly green. This isn't over, Seer, he said, The master wants you dead, and the master always gets what he wants." Then they melted back into shadows. Thalia shifted back to human form, her new knowledge making it easy. She stood on the riverbank, naked and shaking, and felt Kale's cloak wrap around her shoulders. "You did it," he said softly. "You shifted on your first try. That's remarkable." "I had a good teacher," Thalia replied, then froze as she realized how easily the compliment had come. Kale's eyes met hers, and she saw hope bloom in those amber depths. "We should keep moving," Garrett said. "The capital is still 2 days' journey." They began walking through the forest, Thalia wrapped in Kale's cloak, his hand hovering protectively near her back. And as they moved through the darkness together, she realized something had shifted. The bond was no longer just magical. It was becoming something real, something she couldn't deny. And that terrified her more than any shadow mage ever could. The capital appeared on the horizon at sunset, a sprawling city built around a massive white stone palace. As they approached, Thalia felt the wards, layers of protective magic woven so thick they were almost visible. "How old are these wards?" she asked. 300 years, Kale replied. "Built by the first Stormfang Alpha and a council of mages, nothing corrupted can pass through them." Guards at the gate straightened as they recognized their king. "Your Majesty, thank the gods." "Clear the palace," Kale said curtly. "Everyone not essential to security out within the hour." Inside, Thalia found herself overwhelmed by the sheer grandeur. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, tapestries depicting werewolf history. It was beautiful and intimidating. "This way," Kyle said, leading her through corridors until they reached massive double doors carved with wolves and moons. "My chambers." The most heavily warded room in the palace. He opened the doors, revealing a suite that was both royal and comfortable. A massive bed dominated one wall, but there were also chairs, shelves of books, and windows overlooking the city. As Thalia's gaze swept the room, it caught on a bookshelf filled with scholarly texts, histories, philosophies, treatises on magic. She moved toward it without thinking, her fingers trailing over the spines. "You have Aldrich's commentaries on the nature of sight," she whispered, "and Sarah's collected works on vision magic. These were banned after the Purge." "I know," Kyle said quietly. "I've been collecting them. Preserving what my grandfather tried to destroy." Thalia's throat tightened. For 15 years she'd believed herself the last keeper of her people's knowledge, but Kale had been protecting it too, in his own way. She turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. "You'll be safe here," he said. "Where will you sleep?" Thalia asked, then felt foolish. "I'll take a guest room," Kale said. "I know we need to complete the bond, but I won't rush you." "Kyle," she interrupted. "Stop." He fell silent, vulnerability clear in his gaze. "I'm not afraid of you," she said softly, crossing to him. "I'm afraid of failing. Of not being strong enough. Of losing you just when I've found you." "You won't lose me," Kyle said, cupping her face. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Thalia rose on her toes and kissed him, not desperate but slow and sweet. A promise rather than necessity. When they broke apart, his eyes had gone molten. "Thalia, are you sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I've spent 15 years being careful and it didn't keep me safe. Maybe it's time to be reckless." His answering smile was pure wolf. "Then let's be reckless together." Over the next day, Kale gave Thalia a tour, introduced her to advisors, and explained the political situation. The kingdom was on the edge of civil war, with nobles questioning his authority. "They don't know about the shadow corruption," Kale explained. "They just remember my grandfather's reign as strength and order. They don't see the cost." "Then show them," Thalia said. Use my sight to reveal what really happened. At the council meeting, the response was immediate and furious. A seer, Lord Blackwater spat. You bring one of the marked ones here and expect us to accept her visions? Lady Thalia is my mate, Kale said coldly. She is your queen. She's a relic of a failed bloodline, Lady Thornwood countered. They were murdered for political convenience, Iris interrupted from her position as chief healer. I've studied the records. The seers posed no threat except to those hiding the truth. You speak treason, Lord Blackwater growled. No, Thalia said, rising. She speaks truth. And if you can't handle truth, you're part of the problem. The council erupted. Finally, Kale stood and his alpha power crashed over the room. Enough, he said quietly. Lady Thalia is under my protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. Silence followed. Now listen to what she has to say about shadow corruption. Then decide whether you want to help save this kingdom or continue living in ignorance. Thalia stepped forward, silver light glowing in her eyes. The late king made a bargain with shadow mages. He traded his subjects' life force for immortality. Thousands died, and now he's still alive in the shadow realm, still feeding on your people, because he transcended normal death decades ago. Impossible, Lady Thornwood breathed. Based on this, Kale said. Garrett stepped forward carrying a leather-bound journal. My grandfather Magnus's personal account of his bargain with the Obsidian Court. Written in his own hand. He passed the journal to Lord Blackwater, whose face went pale. The Lord passed it to Lady Thornwood, who looked sick. This can't be real, she whispered. It is, Kyle said grimly. Thalia can show you the rest if you'll trust her. Lady Thornwood spoke carefully. If shadow corruption is real and growing, we're all in danger. Can your sight identify corrupted individuals? It was a trap. If she found corruption, she'd start a witch hunt. If she found nothing, they'd claim she was lying. It's fine, Thalia said. You deserve to know. She opened her sight fully. Most members shone with clean auras, but 3 had shadows threaded through their light. Lord Blackwater, Lady Thornwood, and Lord Ashford. All 3 of you have traces of shadow corruption, not enough to control you yet, but enough that you're being influenced without knowing it. The 3 named lords erupted into angry denials, but Kale was already moving. Take them to the isolation chambers. They're to be treated as patients, not prisoners. Iris, can you work with Thalia to purge the corruption? We can try, Iris said. As guards escorted the corrupted lords away, Councillor Greymane stood on trembling legs. How long have they been compromised? Months, Thalia said. Maybe longer. Magnus has been very patient, corrupting influential people to undermine Kale's authority and sow chaos. Then we're already at war, Councillor Greymane said. Yes, Kale agreed, which is why I need your full support. Whatever doubts you had, put them aside. We're fighting for survival. What do you need? Another counselor asked. Thalia and I are going to attempt to complete our mate bond and use it to cleanse shadow corruption at its source, Kale explained. While we're doing that, the kingdom will be vulnerable. I need you to maintain order and strengthen wards. And if you fail? Councillor Greymane asked quietly. Then you fall back to the old ways, Kale said grimly. Seal the kingdom, execute anyone showing corruption, and pray. But we're not going to fail. The council adjourned with unity, and Kale led Thalia back to his chambers. That evening, they planned their approach. Iris provided herbs and potions, Garrett set up additional wards, and Alara, studying ancient texts about mate bonds, offered surprisingly insightful advice. It's not just about physical intimacy, Alara explained, blushing but determined. The bond forms through complete vulnerability, through offering your whole self to your mate and having them accept all of it. So, it's about trust, Thalia said. Ultimate trust, Alara confirmed. That's why fated mates are so powerful. Most people can't achieve that level of vulnerability. That night, Thalia lay in Kyle's bed, their bed now, watching moonlight paint patterns on the ceiling. Kyle lay beside her, close, but not touching. She was older than him by 2 years, unusual for a bonded pair, but the fates cared nothing for human conventions. If anything, it felt right. She'd survived longer, seen more darkness. Perhaps that was why fate had chosen her to help cleanse it. I'm afraid, she admitted. Of what? Of being corrupted. Of failing. Of losing myself. She turned to look at him. Of losing you. You won't lose me, Kyle said, rolling to face her. Whatever happens, I'm yours. Completely. For as long as you'll have me. Even if I'm corrupted? Then I'll spend eternity finding a way to bring you back, Kale said simply, because that's what mates do. We don't give up on each other. Thalia felt tears slip down her cheeks. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything, Kale countered, brushing away her tears, and I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promises, and Thalia felt the last of her walls crumble. Tomorrow, she whispered, we complete the bond tomorrow. Tomorrow, Kale agreed, but tonight, just let me hold you. They fell asleep in each other's arms, the bond humming with warmth and promise. Outside the windows, shadows gathered and whispered, but inside the royal chambers, Thalia felt safe for the first time in 15 years. Tomorrow, they would prove that love was stronger than any shadow magic. Dawn broke with unusual brilliance. Thalia woke to find Kyle watching her. Ready? He asked softly. No, she admitted, but let's do it anyway. They prepared carefully. Thalia bathed in water infused with moonflower and silver birch, while Kyle meditated to center his alpha power. They dressed in simple white robes and met in the ritual chamber beneath the palace. The chamber was ancient, dating back to the first werewolf clans. A circular pool dominated the center, its water glowing faintly. Around it, Iris had placed candles and crystals. The pack will guard the chamber, Garrett said. Nothing will disturb you. Kale nodded, and the pack filed out, leaving him alone with Thalia. How does this work? Thalia asked. We enter the water together, Kale explained. We open ourselves completely, no shields, no defenses, and we let the bond form fully. That's it? That's everything, Kale corrected. Most wolves spend years building to this level of vulnerability. We're attempting it after knowing each other for days. No pressure, Thalia said with a shaky laugh. Kyle took her hands. Thalia, if you're not ready... I am, she interrupted. I trust you, Kale. Completely. His eyes glowed with emotion. I trust you, too. With everything I am. They stepped into the pool together. As the warm water rose to their waists, Thalia felt the ambient magic begin to respond, swirling around them. Now we open the bond, Kale said. Let me in, Thalia. Let me see everything. Thalia took a deep breath and lowered every mental shield she'd built over 15 years. The sensation was like standing naked in a snowstorm, vulnerable and exposing. But Kale was there, his presence pouring through with warmth and acceptance. She felt him experiencing her memories, her father's death, the long years alone, the constant fear. She felt him share her pain, her loneliness, her desperate hope. And in return, she felt his memories, his father's murder by shadow mages, the crushing weight of becoming king at 24, the loneliness of leadership and constant fear that he wasn't enough. You're not him, Thalia sent. You could never be him. And you're not broken, Kale returned. You're the strongest person I've ever met. The bond deepened, their consciousnesses intertwining until Thalia couldn't tell where she ended and Kale began. She felt his love for her, vast and consuming, and realized with shock that she felt the same. The realization sent power surging through the bond. The water around them began to glow, silver and gold light spiraling upward. Thalia gasped as the bond snapped into place, not just formed, but completed, sealed, permanent. They were mated, fully, completely, eternally. And in that moment of perfect unity, Magnus struck. Corruption poured through a hairline crack in the ancient wards, a crack Magnus had been working to create for months, weakening the ancient magic from within the shadow realm itself. Shadow tendrils reached for the bond, trying to twist it, corrupt it. No, Thalia screamed, but the shadows were so strong, fed by decades of stolen power. Hold on to me, Kale commanded. Don't let go. Thalia clung to their connection as the shadows tried to tear them apart. She felt corruption trying to seep in, whispering promises. But then she remembered what Magnus had overlooked. He thinks corruption is stronger than love, she said aloud. But he's wrong. What do you mean? Kyle asked, arms tightening around her. The bond isn't a weakness he can exploit, Thalia explained, her sight suddenly showing her the truth. It's a weapon we can wield. She opened her sight fully, channeling it through their connection to Kale. His alpha power rose to meet her vision, and together they created something neither could achieve alone. Pure, cleansing light, born from genuine love and absolute trust, erupted from their bond like a supernova. The shadows screamed and recoiled, but Thalia pursued them back into the shadow realm itself. She could hear Magnus's rage and fear. Stop, he commanded. You'll destroy everything. No, Thalia said, Kale's voice joining hers in perfect unity. We'll save everything. They found him in the heart of the shadow realm, not the monster he'd become, but the man he'd once been. Buried deep beneath centuries of corruption was a young alpha who'd made a terrible choice. You can't save me, Magnus gasped as their light surrounded him. The corruption is all I am now. You're wrong, Thalia said. You're Magnus Stormfang, grandfather of a king who's better than you ever were. You made mistakes, committed atrocities, but you were still a person, still capable of change. It's too late. It's never too late, Kale said. Not while we're still fighting. Not while there's still love in the world. The light intensified, burning away layers of shadow. Magnus screamed, but beneath the screams, Thalia heard relief. He wanted this. Wanted to be free. Let go, Thalia said gently. Let the shadows go. Come back to who you were meant to be. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Magnus's form began to shift, the corruption burning away. Thalia caught glimpses of the man beneath. Still flawed, still carrying the weight of terrible deeds, but human again. The shadow realm itself began to collapse, all the stolen life force Magnus had hoarded flooding back to its rightful owners. Thalia heard voices, thousands of them, crying out in relief and joy. Magnus's true form emerged, an old man with silver hair and amber eyes like Kale's. Grandson, he whispered, reaching toward them with trembling hands. I'm sorry. For everything. The light consumed him completely, not destroying but transforming. When it faded, the shadow realm was gone, replaced by clear gray void. And in that void, Magnus's spirit stood, no longer twisted, just tired and ready to rest. Thank you, he said, for saving me, for saving all of us. Then he faded, his spirit finally at peace. Thalia and Kale crashed back into their bodies, gasping. The water around them had gone crystal clear, every trace of shadow magic burned away. Through the windows they could see sunlight streaming with unusual brilliance. "Is it over?" Thalia whispered. "It's over," Kale confirmed, pulling her close. "You did it. We did it." The chamber doors burst open, and the pack poured in, faces alight with joy. Garrett reached them first, pulling both into a fierce hug. "We felt it," he said, voice rough. The moment the corruption broke, every wolf in the kingdom felt the shadows lift. "And not just wolves," Iris added with Alara. "The corrupted lords we were treating, Lord Blackwater, Lady Thornwood, and Lord Ashford. They woke completely healed. They requested audience immediately, shame-faced and apologetic for words spoken under shadow influence." Thalia felt tears of relief. They'd done it. Against impossible odds. "What happens now?" she asked, looking at Kale. "Now?" Kale smiled, that beautiful wild smile. "Now we rebuild. We create a kingdom where seers and alphas and healers can all live without fear." He kissed her forehead gently. "And we do it together, my queen." "I like the sound of that," Thalia admitted. The celebration lasted well into the night. The council officially recognized Thalia as queen. The pack howled their approval. But eventually, Thalia and Kale retreated to their chambers, exhausted but happy. They stood at the window, watching their city shine. "I spent 15 years hiding," Thalia said softly. 15 years convinced I'd die alone. I never imagined this." "What?" Kyle asked, wrapping his arms around her. "This. All of it. A home, a family, a mate who loves me." She turned in his embrace. "A future." "You have all of that now," Kyle said, "for as long as you want it." "Forever then," Thalia said, rising to kiss him. "I want it forever." "Forever it is," Kale agreed. And there, in the royal chambers of a kingdom saved from shadow, the last seer and the last true alpha began their forever together. Not because fate demanded it, but because they'd chosen each other. And that made all the difference.